If you're thinking about starting the carnivore diet, it can be kind of daunting. There's a lot you probably don't know. You just know that this is a meat only or mostly meat diet, depending what websites you're reading. So, first and foremost, the carnivore diet is basically a meat and animal product only diet. And there's a whole spectrum of different ways of doing carnivore, and I'll do that in a future video, so subscribe if you want to know about those things. But today I want to talk about the things that you should expect when starting a carnivore diet, whether you're coming in from the standard American diet or you're coming in from paleo or keto or whatever you're doing. These are the things that you should know before you start a carnivore diet, because at the end of the day, this is a different world that you're about to walk into here. So first, after a few days, probably by the third, you're gonna start feeling a little sluggish. This is gonna be just you're gonna be low energy. It's almost unavoidable. This gets called the keto flu because the keto diet is much bigger than carnivore in terms of acceptance socially. It's web presence, the advocates for it there, it's just bigger and more broadly accepted, especially now that businesses have figured out how to make buku bucks, pushing the keto diet, which the meat industry will make a lot of money off carnivore, and so will dairy, but pretty much no one else will, because you can't make keto junk food or carnivore junk food and carnivore bread and things like that. At least not something that you can sell in the store. I'm sure they're about to prove me wrong with that, though, when they figure out how to monetize this. But with this sluggishness, the reason you're gonna feel this is really twofold. At this point, you've burned through most of the excess glucose your body hangs on to. And it's excess because you're used to living off of sugar before, right? That was your primary fuel source if you are on the standard American diet. And when I switched from keto to carnivore, I found that this came back too, because that small amount of carbohydrates that I was consuming, my body was using and was used to using as a supplementary fuel in addition to fat. And I noticed within a couple days that this was coming back. It was the strangest thing ever. And while your body will always have glucose in it, that is a scientific fact, it is not nearly the same amount as before. Your body is just used to sugar, and you just don't have any anymore. But another major compounding factor to the sluggishness is the lack of electrolytes in your system. When you start keto or carnivore, you're going to be expelling a lot of water. It's just inescapable. And with that expelling of water in the bathroom is going to be an expelling of a lot of your electrolytes. So when you start a keto carnivore diet, you're just not used to consuming the amount of salt typical on these diets. You may find yourself thirsty, so you're drinking extra water. You're probably going to need to up your salt game. How much depends on a lot of factors, unique to each person. Are you athletic at all? You going to the gym? You going jogging? You doing any of that stuff? Do you work a physically demanding job? Are you a physical laborer, or do you do deliveries where you're running in and out of the back of a van and moving heavy objects out of there? Are you sitting at a desk all day? A lot of different factors go into this. A good basic rule of thumb is that most carnivores will need to consume minimum 5,000 milligrams of sodium a day, preferably from a good sea salt that is not from the ocean, but from a landlocked location. In the US, you see a lot of carnivores pushing Redmond's real salt, and for a good reason. It's an amazingly good salt. Try to get something local to where you're from, though, if you can. Now, that having been said, there are some high-profile carnivore influencers who don't consume much salt at all, either because their bodies are not used to this new equilibrium they're in, or they're just some of the kind of stranger folks physiologically who don't need to consume extra salt. But that's not going to be true for most people. Let me know in the comments if you are a veteran carnivore and that is true for you, though, that you don't actually need to consume much salt. Number 2, going to get diarrhea. Yeah, you're probably going to be running to the bathroom, or at least you probably will be. Again, none of these rules are 100% true for every single person out there, but you should expect this. And that is going to be caused by 2 factors at least. One, your body is going to be getting rid of all the gut flora. It doesn't really need any more once it figures out you're not consuming carbs much anymore. And 2, you're probably consuming too much fat. So easy to do, by the way, doing carnivore. It's very hard for your body to store fat you eat as body fat. It's one of the great myths out there. We've always been told our whole lives, you eat too much fat, you're going to get fat. So what's going to happen is your body's going to pass out what it doesn't need anyway. It isn't fun, to put it mildly, so dial it back a little if you need. And you might find some cuts of meat are more likely to cause that problem for you than others, like the point of a brisket, which is by volume something like 65% fat, which means it's calorically well above 65% fat. It's an amazing cut. I love brisket, especially in a pellet grill, barbecue, that kind of thing. The point is my favorite part. It's also so fatty that you proceed with caution when eating it. Number 3, you're going to get cravings. You're almost certainly going to start having weird cravings for non-carnivore foods. This might be for things most people admit are garbage, like Doritos or donuts or ice cream. Or your cravings may manifest a little differently, like something less obviously bad, but still not carnivore. I remember having weird random cravings for sandwiches, and I've never been a big sandwich guy. Some people eat them every day. I never was. And when I would get a sandwich, it would be always a nicer, higher quality, quote unquote, sandwich. Or it may also be fresh fruit for you or toast. I used to love toast. And so like early on, when I was cutting carbs down to as low as I could go, I started craving toast. And, sandwiches, it was the weirdest thing. Your body misses carbohydrates, and it has not yet become fat adapted, and is trying to get you to eat things that your body's used to using for fuel. And those things are not on plan. Why? Because carbs get their hooks into you. And part of the point of a diet like this is to create a healthy relationship with food. Because out there, in the broader world, most of us just come from a background of not having a healthy relationship with food. And that's most people in the Western world these days, unfortunately. Speaking of healthy relationships with food, number 4, the next thing you can expect is within a couple of weeks of doing reasonably strict carnivore like the beef, butter, bacon, and egg method, you're probably going to start getting bored with your perceived lack of variety. That problem is more of an indictment of modernity than anything else. We are surrounded by feasting foods all the time, and most people eat feasting foods, or the garbage quality versions of them, almost every day. We've come to expect novelty and variety that our forebears just couldn't imagine. Just go drive down like the main drag in the business side of town of where you live, and you see all the fast food places. And I don't just mean the different burger joints, and those are feasting foods if you really think about this in the broad sense of human history. Just look at all the options you have, the different varieties of foods. It's kind of staggering when you actually think about it. These are options. This is variety level that our forebears just could never have imagined. Food should be, first and foremost, a means to an end. Nutrition and good health. And eating should never be something you do as like an emotional response. That's how you get a whole lot of extra body fat, unfortunately. It should first and foremost be fuel for the body. After that, yes, getting enjoyment out of your food is totally normal and totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The big benefit of the carnivore way of life is that we have a real opportunity to reorder our relationships with food, returning it towards a means to an end instead of food becoming an end in itself. And the 5th thing you can really expect here, and I did a video recently on this, is people are going to get weird, judgmental. I mean, think about it this way. Unless there's a big meat sale happening at your grocery store, what's it going to look like to a normal person if you pull up to the checkout line, if you can find one that still exists instead of self-checkout? But, what's it going to look like when your shopping cart is loaded with, $100 worth of steaks and ground beef, a couple cases of eggs, and an unusually large amount of butter? Most people, a little 4-pack of butter, we'll say the generic brand of butter, whatever that is in your region. Here where I live, we have this brand called Best Choice, and another brand called Save a Lot. These are your bargain basement generic brands of butter and generic brands of anything, really. What's it look like, if you have 5 packs of butter in your cart, when a typical person or household would probably go through a 4-pack of butter, a single pack, not 5 packs, a single pack that has 4 sticks of butter in it. And they would go through that in like 3 weeks. And you're buying 5 packs of butter that you'll probably go through in that same amount of time. Now think about it. What does that look like if you don't come from that world? If you don't come from carnivore, what does that look like? It's a little weird looking. There's no plants in there. Because you carnivore, plants are what our food eats, right? We get our nutrition from animals who developed or were created, or whatever you think about that sort of thing, to eat plants. They are made to eat plants, And it looks like human beings really just are not in any real large amounts anyway. So it looks a little weird. People are going to get judgy, whether that's at the checkout line or your friends and family, your coworkers. I mean, think about it. You sitting in the break room on your 30-minute or hour, lunch or dinner break, and you pull out of the refrigerator just, big thing of ground beef that you cooked, and a couple boiled eggs, and you microwave the ground beef, and you're sitting there eating your beef out of your Pyrex pan or whatever, and people are looking at you weird because all you're eating is meat and eggs for your midday meal. People get judgy. Get used to it. Anyway, let me know what else people think, or what else you think people can expect when starting a carnivore diet in the comments, please. We're all trying to help each other be successful on this to optimize their health, to optimize their lives with the most simple, easy diet to do. Because this really is. Carnivore diet is the easiest diet I have ever seen, and I've tried all of them. And I'm now out at almost 150 pounds lost since I, first went keto and then carnivore last year. Anyway, let me know what you think of this in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. And thanks for watching today.